The crystal chandeliers of the Sterling Tower cast dancing shadows across white marble floors. Natasha Monroe adjusted the collar of her emerald silk blouse, her fingers trembling slightly as they brushed against the leather armrest of her wheelchair. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawled beneath her like a kingdom she once ruled on 2 feet. Now she commanded it from wheels of polished chrome. She had built Monroe luxury brands from nothing. 10 years of relentless work, sleepless nights, and calculated risks had transformed her small boutique into a fashion empire worth billions. Her designs graced red carpets and royal weddings. Celebrities begged for her creations. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, she was just a woman on a blind date. Her assistant, Rebecca, had insisted. "You need to live again," she had said with that gentle firmness only a true friend could manage. "Let someone see the real you. The real Natasha. Not just the CEO." Natasha glanced at her watch. 20 minutes late. The restaurant hummed with quiet conversation and the soft clink of expensive silverware against fine china. Couples leaned close over candlelight. Businessmen sealed deals over aged wine. Everyone belonged here except her, or so the sidelong glances suggested. A waiter approached, his smile professional but his eyes betraying discomfort. "Would Madam like to order while she waits?" he asked, though his tone implied she might be waiting forever. "Not yet," Natasha replied, her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. Then she saw him. Derek Hammond strode through the entrance like he owned the place, which his family probably did. Tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that cost more than most people's monthly salary. His hair was styled with precision, his smile confident, rehearsed. The hostess guided him toward her table. His stride faltered when he spotted her. The smile flickered. His eyes dropped to the wheelchair, then quickly away, as if looking too long might somehow contaminate him. He stopped 3 feet from the table, maintaining a distance that felt intentional. "You're Natasha Monroe," he stated rather than asked, disbelief coloring each word. "Yes," she said, extending her hand with practiced grace. "You must be Derek." He did not take her hand. The silence stretched between them like broken glass. Nearby diners began to notice. Forks paused midair. Conversations dimmed. Even the pianist seemed to play softer, as if the room itself held its breath. "I have to say," Derek finally spoke, his voice low but carrying in the sudden quiet, "this is not what I expected. When Rebecca set this up, she mentioned the CEO of Monroe Luxury Brands. She failed to mention certain details." Natasha felt ice crystallize in her veins. She had faced hostile takeover attempts, brutal fashion critics, and cutthroat competitors. But this casual cruelty, delivered with such entitled ease, struck deeper than any business battle. "I am the CEO," she said quietly. "The wheelchair does not change that." Derek laughed, a short bark of disbelief. "Come on. This is practically false advertising. I came here expecting to meet someone who could actually walk beside me at events, someone who fits the image I need. Not this." The words hit like physical blows. Around them, gasps rippled through the dining room. A woman at the next table covered her mouth. An elderly gentleman half rose from his seat, expression outraged. Natasha gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. She would not cry. She would not give him that satisfaction. She reached for her clutch, preparing to leave with whatever dignity remained. "Apologies for the delay, sweetheart. Traffic was a nightmare." The voice came from behind her, warm and genuine. Natasha turned to find a man she had never seen before approaching her table. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing faded jeans and a navy Henley that had seen better days. Sawdust clung to his work boots. His dark hair was slightly mussed, as if he had just run his fingers through it. But his eyes, deep brown and kind, focused entirely on her. He moved to her side, placing one hand gently on the back of her wheelchair. His touch was light, respectful, asking permission rather than assuming it. "Did you order already?" he asked, leaning down slightly as if they shared intimate secrets. Natasha stared at him, confusion and hope warring in her chest. Who was this man? He met her gaze, and in his eyes, she saw a silent question. "Trust me?" She gave the smallest nod. The stranger straightened and turned to Derek with an easy smile that did not reach his eyes. "Thanks for keeping my fiancé company, friend. I can take it from here." Derek's mouth fell open. "You're what?" "Come on, love," the man said to Natasha, gently maneuvering her chair. "This crowd is not really our style tonight." He guided her toward the exit with quiet confidence, as if they had done this 1,000 times before. Behind them, the restaurant erupted in whispers and speculation. Derek called out something, but the words dissolved into meaningless noise. In the elevator, blessed silence enveloped them. The doors slid shut on the chaos above. City lights twinkled through the glass walls as they descended. Natasha released a breath she had not realized she was holding. "You did not even hesitate," she said softly, looking up at him. The man shrugged, a slight smile playing at his lips. "You looked like you could use an exit strategy." "You do not know me." "Did not need to," he replied. His voice carried no expectation of gratitude, no hint of performance. Just simple honesty. Natasha studied him. His hands, calloused and strong. His clothes, worn but clean. His face, open and unguarded. Everything about him was the opposite of the men she usually encountered in her world of luxury and pretense. "What is your name?" she asked. "Caleb. Caleb Ross." The name settled between them, solid and real. Natasha felt something shift in her chest, like a door she had locked long ago creaking open just a fraction. "Well, Caleb Ross," she said, "I believe I owe you dinner." He grinned. "I was actually heading to this food truck I know. Best sandwiches in the city. Not exactly 5-star dining though." She raised an eyebrow. "Quite a step down from truffle risotto." "Maybe," he agreed, "but I guarantee the company will be better." For the first time in months, Natasha Monroe smiled. A real smile, unguarded and genuine, the kind that reached her eyes and made them shine. And in that moment, in a descending elevator with a stranger who had asked for nothing, she felt more seen than she had in years. The food truck glowed like a beacon against the dark street, its menu board scrawled in cheerful chalk. The scent of grilled onions and melted cheese drifted through the warm evening air, mixing with distant car horns and the low hum of the city that never truly slept. Natasha had not eaten street food in years, maybe a decade. Her world had become one of private chefs and carefully plated meals in restaurants where silence was mandatory and enjoyment optional. Caleb wheeled her to a small folding table on the sidewalk, its surface worn but clean. He disappeared to order, returning moments later with 2 paper-wrapped sandwiches and bottles of cold soda that sweated in the humid air. "The owner used to work at the Grandview Hotel," Caleb explained as he unwrapped his sandwich. "Quit the fancy life to do this. Says he is happier now. Makes everything from scratch." Natasha took a cautious bite. Flavor exploded across her tongue, rich and honest, nothing pretentious about it. It was delicious in a way that made her laugh, a sound that surprised them both. "What?" Caleb asked, grinning. "I just spent $200 on a table reservation to eat nothing, and this $5 sandwich is the best thing I have tasted in months." They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the city moving around them like a river flowing past an island. Natasha watched Caleb from the corner of her eye. He ate without self-consciousness, occasionally nodding to passing neighbors who called his name. He belonged here in a way she had not belonged anywhere in a long time. "Why did you do it?" she asked suddenly. "Back there in the restaurant. You risked looking foolish in front of all those people." Caleb set down his sandwich and met her gaze. I did not see it as a risk. I saw someone being treated like they were less than human, and I could not walk past that. My mom raised me better. Your mother sounds wise. She was, Caleb said, and something flickered across his face. Pain, memory, love all tangled together. She passed 2 years ago. Cancer. But yeah, she was the best person I ever knew. I am sorry, Natasha said softly. Caleb nodded, then shifted the conversation. What about you? How does someone become a fashion empire CEO before 30? Natasha hesitated. She rarely spoke about her past, especially the parts that hurt. But something about the darkness and the simple food and this stranger who had asked for nothing made the words come easier. I was 20 when I started, she said. Borrowed money from everyone who would listen, maxed out credit cards, worked 3 jobs while designing at night. Fashion was not just what I did. It was who I was. Every stitch, every seam, every piece told a story. She paused, her fingers tracing patterns on the table. 5 years ago, I was flying back from Paris Fashion Week. We had just launched our most ambitious collection. Critics were calling it revolutionary. I was on top of the world, literally and figuratively. Her voice dropped. Then the plane hit turbulence. Bad turbulence. We dropped thousands of feet in seconds. I do not remember the impact, just waking up in a hospital 3 weeks later. The doctors said my spine was severed at T6. Complete. Permanent. Caleb listened without interruption, without the pity she had grown to hate. My boyfriend left within a month, Natasha continued. Said he was too young to be a caregiver. Business partners tried to push me out, claiming I could not lead the company anymore. Said the face of a fashion brand could not be someone in a wheelchair. As if my brain stopped working when my legs did. But you stayed, Caleb said. I fought, Natasha corrected. Every single day. I rebuilt the board, restructured the company, proved that I was more than my body. But somewhere in all that fighting, I forgot how to just be. How to let someone see me as anything other than the CEO who overcame adversity. I became my own armor. She looked at him. Until tonight, when a carpenter I never met treated me like I was just a person worth defending. Caleb smiled. You are worth defending. A breeze swept down the street, carrying the scent of rain. Natasha shivered slightly, and without a word, Caleb shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. It smelled like sawdust and cedar and something indefinably him. Your turn, she said. Why is an architect building furniture on street corners? Caleb laughed, surprised. How did you know I studied architecture? You have the hands of someone who builds, but the way you look at buildings, I noticed it in the elevator. You were studying the structure, the design. That is not just a carpenter. That is someone who understands why things stand. He nodded slowly. I was at Columbia on full scholarship. Top of my class, ready to change skylines and win awards. Then my mom got sick. Stage 4. My dad had left years before, and my sister was still in high school. Someone had to step up. So you left, Natasha said quietly. I chose family over dreams, Caleb said. Started taking construction jobs to pay bills, learned woodworking from an old master craftsman who needed an apprentice. Turns out I loved it. Working with my hands, creating things people actually touch and use every day. Not monuments to ego, just honest furniture that makes life a little better. Do you regret it? Natasha asked. Caleb considered this. Sometimes I wonder what might have been. But regret? No. I built something real. I helped my mom die with dignity. I put my sister through college. And I learned that there are different kinds of success. The kind that looks good on paper and the kind that lets you sleep at night. Natasha felt tears prick her eyes. When was the last time someone had been this honest with her? When had anyone in her world valued anything beyond profit margins and brand recognition? Her hand trembled as she reached for her soda, the lack of sensation making her clumsy. The bottle tipped, spilling dark liquid across her cream-colored slacks and onto her shoe. Embarrassment flooded through her. She fumbled for napkins, but her fingers would not cooperate. Heat rose to her cheeks. This was why she avoided public dining. This was why she kept people at a distance. "Hold on," Caleb said quietly. He pulled a clean rag from his pocket, the kind workers carried, and knelt beside her without hesitation. He dabbed at the wet fabric of her slacks, careful and efficient. Then he lifted her foot gently, supporting it with both hands, and cleaned the soda from her shoe and ankle. There was no awkwardness in his touch, no performative care. He simply did what needed doing, then set her foot back on the footrest and looked up at her. Not at the wheelchair. At her. "Crisis averted," he said with a small smile. Natasha could not speak. No one had touched her like that since the accident. Not without hesitation, not without that subtle recoil of discomfort. Doctors and therapists touched her clinically. Family touched her carefully, as if she might shatter. But Caleb touched her like she was simply a person who needed help, no more, no less. "Thank you," she whispered. He sat back down and picked up his sandwich as if nothing remarkable had happened. "You going to let that masterpiece get cold?" Natasha picked up her sandwich with steadier hands and took another bite. Around them, the city continued its endless rhythm. But for the first time in 5 years, she felt like she was part of that rhythm instead of watching it from behind glass. They talked for another hour, about everything and nothing. He told her about the rocking chair he was building for his neighbor's new baby. She told him about the sketches she still drew late at night, designs she never showed anyone. The conversation flowed like water, easy and natural. When they finally parted, Caleb did not ask for her number. He simply said, "I am glad you did not let that guy ruin your whole night." "You ruined his instead," Natasha pointed out. "Good," Caleb said, and his grin was unrepentant. As she watched him walk away, hands in pockets, whistling softly, Natasha realized something had shifted. The armor she wore so carefully had developed a crack, and instead of terrifying her, it felt like relief. Like maybe, just maybe, it was okay to let someone in. That night, alone in her penthouse, she did not stare at spreadsheets or review designs. She sat by the window and thought about calloused hands and honest smiles and the way it felt to be seen instead of assessed. And for the first time since the accident, she allowed herself to wonder what it might be like to be loved not despite her wheelchair, but simply as herself. Across the city, in a small workshop that smelled of wood and possibility, Caleb Ross sanded a table leg and smiled at nothing in particular, remembering emerald eyes that held galaxies. 3 weeks passed before Natasha saw Caleb again, though he occupied her thoughts far more often than she cared to admit. She threw herself into work with renewed intensity, but something had changed. The designs she created now held more warmth, more humanity. Her assistant noticed. The board noticed. Even the fashion press commented on the evolution in her upcoming collection. The Monroe Foundation Charity Gala arrived on a crisp autumn evening. Natasha had agreed months ago to give the keynote speech, before a stranger with sawdust on his boots had reminded her what courage really meant. Now, as her driver helped transfer her into the venue, her heart hammered against her ribs. The ballroom glittered with Manhattan's elite. Diamonds caught the light from a dozen chandeliers. Designer gowns swept across marble floors. Natasha wore midnight blue silk, her own design, the first piece she had worn from her collection since the accident. Her blonde hair was swept up, revealing the graceful curve of her neck. She navigated through the crowd, receiving air kisses and hollow compliments. People praised her bravery, her inspiration, always emphasizing what she had overcome rather than what she had achieved. It exhausted her. Then she saw him. Caleb stood near the back, looking uncomfortable in a borrowed suit that was slightly too tight across the shoulders. He held a glass of champagne like it might explode. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and his face transformed with a genuine smile that made her stomach flip. She made her way toward him, ignoring calls from board members and donors. "You clean up well," she said. "You too," he replied. "Though I liked the version covered in soda just as much." They laughed together, and suddenly the oppressive room felt lighter. "What are you doing here?" Natasha asked. Caleb shifted. "My workshop donated furniture for the silent auction. Figured I should show up. Did not expect to see you. I am giving the speech tonight." His eyebrows rose. "That is amazing. And terrifying." "Both," she admitted. "I have faced boardrooms full of sharks, but this feels different. More personal." The lights dimmed. A voice announced that the keynote address would begin. Natasha felt panic rise in her throat. Caleb leaned close. "Remember what you told me about fashion? That every piece tells a story? Tell them your story. Not the one they expect. The real one." His words steadied her. She nodded and made her way to the stage. The spotlight felt like fire. Hundreds of faces turned toward her, expectant, curious, judging. Natasha gripped the microphone and began. 5 years ago, I lost the ability to walk. What I did not realize then was that I would spend the next several years learning how to truly stand. Not on legs, but on principle. On purpose. On the belief that our worth is not measured by what our bodies can do, but by what our hearts dare to dream. Her voice grew stronger. The fashion industry told me I could no longer represent beauty because beauty apparently requires 2 working legs. Investors told me I could not lead because leadership apparently requires standing at a podium. I proved them all wrong. But in doing so, I became so focused on proving my strength that I forgot to embrace my humanity. She paused, finding Caleb in the crowd. Someone recently reminded me that being vulnerable is not weakness. That accepting help does not diminish us. That true connection requires us to show up as we are, not as we wish we were. The room was silent, transfixed. That is why tonight I am announcing a new initiative. Monroe Adaptive, a fashion line designed specifically for people with disabilities. Not adaptive fashion as an afterthought, but luxury design that celebrates every body. Because elegance is not about conforming to narrow standards. It is about feeling powerful in your own skin, whatever that skin looks like. Applause erupted, genuine and thunderous. People rose to their feet. Natasha saw tears on faces, saw recognition and validation from those who had been excluded for too long. After the speech, she was surrounded by well-wishers and reporters. But through the chaos, she kept looking for Caleb. When she finally found him, he was heading toward the exit. "Leaving so soon?" she called out. He turned back, smiling. "Figured you would be busy with all this. Besides, I am not really the champagne and caviar type." "Walk me out?" He raised an eyebrow. "You sure? I might ruin your image." "I am counting on it," she said. They made their way to the rooftop garden, a quiet oasis above the glittering city. Fairy lights strung between potted trees created constellations of warmth. The autumn breeze carried the scent of night-blooming jasmine. "That was incredible," Caleb said. "What you announced up there, it will change lives." "It is what I should have done years ago," Natasha replied. "I was so busy proving I was still the same person that I forgot to grow into someone better." They sat in comfortable silence, the city humming below them. Finally, Caleb spoke. "Can I tell you something? That night at the restaurant, I almost walked past. Told myself it was not my business, that you probably had it handled. But then I thought about all the times I wished someone had stepped in for my mom when people stared or whispered. All the times I wanted someone to see her as more than her illness. So I decided to be that person for someone else. Natasha reached for his hand. I am glad you did. Their fingers intertwined, his calloused and strong, hers elegant and sure. It felt right in a way that defied logic and circumstance. The next morning, Natasha received an emergency call. The board had called a meeting. She arrived to find 6 stern faces waiting. Natasha, the chairman began, we need to discuss the company's direction. This adaptive line, it is a significant departure from our brand identity. Some of us feel it sends the wrong message. What message would that be? She asked coldly. That Monroe is no longer aspirational, another board member interjected. Luxury is about exclusivity. You are talking about accessibility. The two do not mix. Natasha felt rage build in her chest. After everything she had built, they still saw her as the problem. You want to know about aspiration? She said quietly. Let me tell you what real aspiration looks like. It is a teenage girl with cerebral palsy who wants to feel beautiful at prom. It is a veteran who lost his legs in combat and deserves to dress with dignity. It is anyone who has been told by this industry that they do not matter because their body does not fit an arbitrary standard. She leaned forward. I built this company from nothing. I saved it when you all wanted to sell. And I will not let your limited vision destroy what fashion can become. Monroe Adaptive launches in 3 months. Anyone who wants to stand in the way can submit their resignation now. Silence filled the boardroom. One by one, the board members looked away, unable to meet her fierce gaze. The chairman cleared his throat. Very well. We will support the initiative. That evening, exhausted but triumphant, Natasha returned to her penthouse to find flowers waiting. Wildflowers, not roses. A note in simple handwriting read, heard you reminded some people who is in charge. Proud of you. Caleb. She called him immediately. Thank you for the flowers. Seemed like you might need a reminder that you are amazing. How did you even hear about the board meeting? This city loves to gossip, he said. Plus your assistant might have mentioned it when she ordered a custom bookshelf. Natasha laughed, the sound free and unguarded. Have dinner with me. Real dinner, not street food. There was a pause. Are you sure? Your world and mine, they are pretty different. I do not want my world, she said firmly. I want you in it. 2 months later, on a Saturday morning, Caleb brought Natasha to his workshop. Sunlight streamed through high windows, illuminating floating dust motes and the warm grain of wood. The space smelled of cedar and lemon oil and creative possibility. Close your eyes, he said. She did, smiling at his excitement. She heard him moving something, then his hands covered hers. Okay, look. Before her stood a custom desk, designed at the perfect height for her wheelchair. It had smooth curves for easy movement, built-in storage at accessible levels, and a surface inlaid with exotic woods that formed an abstract pattern like waves or wings. I thought about what you said, Caleb explained. About drawing late at night but never having a proper space. So I built you one. Somewhere you can create without barriers. Tears streamed down Natasha's face. No one had ever given her something so perfectly tailored to her needs without making it feel like charity. This was thoughtfulness, artistry, love. It is perfect, she whispered. Caleb knelt beside her wheelchair, his eyes serious. Natasha Monroe, I fell for you the moment I saw you refuse to let that guy diminish you. I fell harder when you let me see your vulnerability. And I am completely gone now, watching you change the world one design at a time. I know our lives are complicated and different, but I also know that I want to build a life with you. If you will have me. He pulled out a simple wooden box, handcrafted and beautiful. Inside was a ring, elegant and unique, platinum band with small diamonds arranged like constellations. Natasha looked at this man who saw past every wall she had built, who treated her disability as a fact rather than a tragedy, who loved her not despite anything but because of everything. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking with joy. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, gentle and sure, a promise sealed. 6 months later, Monroe Adaptive launched to international acclaim. The fashion show featured models of all abilities, all bodies, all backgrounds. Natasha sat front row beside Caleb, his hand in hers, watching her vision come to life. Backstage afterward, a young woman in a wheelchair approached, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," the woman said, "for showing me I do not have to hide to be beautiful." Natasha squeezed her hand. "You never did. I just hope this helps you see what was always there." As they left the venue that night, photographers shouted questions. Natasha smiled at Caleb, then turned to the cameras. "You want to know the real story? It is not about overcoming disability or defying odds. It is about finding someone who sees you completely and chooses to stay. That is the revolution. That is the love story. Everything else is just details." Caleb pulled her close, kissing her temple. And as flashbulbs popped and the city buzzed with their story, Natasha Monroe realized that she had not just found love. She had found herself, her purpose, and proof that the most beautiful designs are the lives we build together. The blind date that went wrong had led her exactly where she needed to be. And for that disaster, she would be forever grateful.